everybody, and a very warm welcome to the latest edition of The Jump Show. It's very good to be back. This week, we're going to be looking at Wetherby, Ascot, and a little bit of Dan Royal as well, so a smattering of everything in terms of national hunt, races, and racecourses on this week's show. First of all, thank you so much for getting us up to that 2,000 subscriber mark. It really does mean a huge amount to us at The Jump Show, and it's quite a milestone. So huge gratitude goes out to all of you who have given us a little click saying subscribe. And please do give us a like. This week, if we get to 200 likes, there will be a ticket giveaway for the Cheltenham November meeting. So that is what today's show's giveaway is. So please do get involved. And also remember to comment at the end of this with your best bet of the weekend. We always enjoy hearing what you've got to say, and usually it's more accurate than what we have to say. Okay, first up,
speak for yourself, Bully.
Oh, don't worry, I am. Your tweet did make me laugh, actually, on whenever it was Monday, Tuesday, about Chepstow, Jake. It's, you tweeted that it doesn't get much better than 2 divisions of a novice hurdle at Chepstow to really get the juices flowing. And do you know what made me laugh? Because I know that you're being absolutely serious as well.
Unfortunately so.
No, it's good to see. We might even come on to those in a minute because, a couple of really impressive performances at Chepstow from last week, most notably from a Dan Skelton horse called The New Line. Right, let's move on, shall we, to the recent notable performance. It brings us on nicely to that little segment of the show. Dan, come to you first. Last 7 days or so, what's caught your eye?
Yeah, and speaking of Dan Skelton novice hurdlers, I'm going to go with one. Normally I'd talk about something that finished 9th of 13 in an air novice hurdle and once stepping up in trip, but this time actually going with a winning horse, which is a rare change of pace. Sunray Shadow is his name, won at Aintree on the Sunday. He had his hurdling debut at the start of the month, and I think, generally speaking, a lot of the Skelton novices around the end of September, start of October, are all kind of needing the run, or at least looking like they'd improved quite a bit for it. Sunray Shadow was definitely one of them. He was third on his hurdling debut when given not the best of rides over 2 miles, but up to 2.5 at Aintree. Only won just over a length, but clearly a horse that's still very much learning, but clearly has a lot of ability as well. There was good word for him before the season started that he could be a very interesting and top prospect. The thing with him, I think they're going to probably try and get him a mark now. Now he's had 2 runs. They've done that with Ace of Spades, who's a not too dissimilar type. And the thing is, when you look at this horse, he clearly travels like a very good animal. And I think there's a lot of potential there. But his form is very poor. And in a way, I think that's going to work out in his favour, because I think if they are asked to give him a mark and assign one, it's going to be very lenient. It's going to massively underestimate his ability. Seemingly wants a bit of good ground, so it wouldn't surprise me at all if they try and get him a handicap mark, maybe just pillage an early season handicap in not the deepest contest, and maybe come back for the spring, aim at some better targets. But I think Sunray Shadow is definitely a horse of a lot of ability and one that will keep improving.
Yeah, I think that's very fair. And he did look the type who's going to continue to progress. And he just did enough, didn't he? But it always looks as though he's going to get there. What about you then, Jake, for the last 7 days?
Yeah, well, mine's actually just got a welcome mention there from Dan. And it's Ace of Spades for the Dan Skelton team. Obviously, we'll keep up that theme of Dan Skelton novice hurdlers. He actually ran last week at Exeter. But the reason why I'm putting him up this week is because, as Dan said, he received his mark. He's been given a mark of 115, which I just think is absolutely, insanely lenient, really, compared to the talent that he may possess. He's very poor fourth when Dad said, these horses were needing the run. He talks on his hurdles debut. He actually got backed into favourite that day. I even put him up. I was, pretty hot on his chances, but yeah, he didn't jump well and clearly needed the run. But he stepped forward massively when going up to 2 miles, 2.5 furlong at Exeter last week. It looked like a really hot race on paper as well. There was some nice types in the race. But he ran an absolute belter, came on for the run massively, jumped much better. And he was only beaten a short head by Ambien Hill, who was kind of a surprise winner on the day, but he's got some decent bumper form to his name as well. And most importantly, the pair pulled 13 lengths clear of the rest of the field. So that was good. What's also notable is Dan Skelton said in a stable tour recently that he'll improve as the season progresses, and he might just turn up in the spring as he did last season, which, if you look for his bumper form, that's exactly what he did. He went from finishing 5th behind Royal Infantry on his debut to 2nd behind Wade Out, and then beating Junker Dahlia, who won on his hurdles debut at Carlisle the other day very nicely. So I think that'll be the exact same plan. He'll be going for handicaps in the spring, and off his current mark of 115, he's definitely well treated.
Very comprehensive argument put forward there, Jake. I mean, Dan Skelton's team are just flying at the moment, aren't they? Catching Derry, really impressive earlier this week. We had New Lion winning. Also had Loda Sud making a winning chase debut. That came today. Time of recording on Thursday. So the team is absolutely flying. They've got some really nice horses to go to war with. I'm going to go to my favourite duo, Oliver Greenland, Josh Guerriero. Who'd have thought I'd be putting one up for them? It is Billy the Real Big Red. And that's not because it's similar to my name, Bully the Real Big Lad. But I do think he's a horse of significant potential, and he's done nothing but improve so far. Part of the reason why I really like him this season is because I think they could easily have got another couple of handicap hurdles into his mark. They decided not to. They decided to go straight chasing, and I think that's a really good decision because he jumped impeccably on chasing debut earlier this week at Bangor on D, eventually winning by 14 lengths. Now he's clearly ahead of the assessor, but he's got a lovely running style, and they just let him go forward and gallop. And I think that's help him defy the handicapper because although he will go up in the weights for that, such as his running style, I think the handicapper is going to struggle to get a hold on him. He jumps really well. He'll only come off of that run last time, and I think he'll stay further than the extended 2-4 that he went over then. He's only 4 years old as well. I mean, the world is absolutely his oyster. He's won that off 112. He's won it head in chest by 14 lengths. I can see him easily turning into 130, 140 horse by the end of the season, which would obviously involve winning at least 2 or 3 more races. But I can see that happening. Over hurdles, he won 3 on the bounce and then fell in his bid for a full-timer. And so for me, he'll do. He really caught my eye. He was one to follow for me anyway, but I loved what he did at Bangor. And it might not have been the strongest race in the world, but I mean, nothing was ever going to get into it or get close. And he travelled supremely well throughout. So he'll be my pick for the last 7 days.
Yeah, worth noting as well, Bully, the Oliver Greenall and Josh Guerriero team have a really good strike rate with chase debutants. Like I remember looking up for making headway when we looked at the Cheltenham show last week. So they're always ones to keep an eye out for on chase debut because they can definitely get one ready to win first time out.
Let's move on to this week, shall we? What really matters. That's the thoughts of Jake and Dan on the racing coming up. We're going to start by looking at Wetherby. Jake, we'll come to you first for the Mayor's Hurdle listed race, and Lucia at the moment is the market leader, and you can absolutely see why, can't you?
Yeah, I think she's just going to take the beating here, really, isn't she? There's just nothing in here to take her on like You Wear It Well did last year, and equally the ground is completely different this year. You know, she's got her good ground, which she prefers. But yeah, I mean, the form of her third in the Champion Hurdle will be enough to win this. Sweet Fantasy is probably the only one you could make a small case for, but she has a stone to find on the ratings. So I'll be very surprised if Lucia can't get the job done here.
Do you see a danger at all, Jake? I mean, you seem pretty confident that she's going to win.
Not really. I mean, as I said, she'd have to improve massively to be able to get there. She's also coming back, you know, after a break as well. So it's not like she's got a fitness advantage or anything like that. So you're basically hoping on that she's going to improve massively. And Lucia just set such a high level of form last year, winning that handicap and obviously finishing third in the Champion Hurdle. So yeah, no, she should win this.
Yeah, she should win. I mean, on that third in the Champion Hurdle, Dan, almost expected to be shorter than the current 8-11 to win this race.
Yeah, I don't think people are necessarily taking the exact performance of that literally, because I don't think people are really going to say she ran to within 4 lengths of State Man, an absolute peak State Man. Great run nonetheless. Obviously, I think it's going to be her last season in training as well. I guess the only thing you'd probably throw at her is that she was obviously maybe a bit disappointing in this last season. Ground was very different, as Jake mentioned. But also, this is probably going to be a bit of a litmus test weekend for the Nicky Hedison team. Obviously, I know he's had a couple of winners, Highland being probably the notable one, but he was very much on the go through the summer, whereas this is the first weekend where a lot of the winter types are going to be out. So you're not really sure just yet how far forward they are. So it'll be worth keeping an eye on a lot of them. Obviously, he's got a few at Ascot as well. So if you're going to throw a few stones at it, that would be it. Sweet Fantasy probably would be the interesting angle. And again, if you're looking to get Lucia beat, maybe you're hoping for a bit of a small field tactical race. Sweet Fantasy is quite a keen going type, will go forward. Could maybe just get a bit of a kick on going for home and maybe make it a bit too much for Lucia to peg her back. But we know Lucia's got a very high cruising speed, so probably wouldn't be overly inconvenienced by it. Not a race I'll ever bet in. Lucia should win. Sweet Fantasy, the interesting one.
Yeah, I would give Take No Chances a mention as well, just because that was a good run on return in the Silver Trophy. Obviously, she'll have to improve again, but she might well come off of that run. Obviously, the Skelton team are absolutely soaring along, aren't they? Okay, on to the 220. Extraordinary today. The Bet365 Hurdle, Grade 2, 3 miles, and a friend of the show, actually, Andrew Blair White, will be very pleased to see that Sandor Clegane has now gone to the top of the market in a new headgear combination, tongue-tie and cheek pieces. He's currently doing fist pumps as I speak out of the corner of my eye. He is currently favourite. Katir is there at a second favourite. Dashel Drasher Thunder Rock, Twig, Beacon Edge, All Mankind make up the rest of the field. Wouldn't necessarily be vintage staying contest, but it's competitive enough. There's no doubt about that. Dan, where would you be leaning at this stage?
Has this race ever been vintage? Like
Yeah,
this
I
is what it's
reckon.
all about. Like this kind of middle of the road horse where you've really got no other options. This is the perfect race. I love this kind of race. Obviously, last year we had a mighty clash between Botox Has and Red Risk. Red Risk, who decided to hit every single hurdle in the home straight. Good luck who's going to win, then get beat about half a length. One of the more frustrating defeats I've suffered. But this year, I know you two quite fancy one, but I really like Thunder Rock in this. I actually liked him even with strong leader potentially running. And the fact they're not running him and only running Thunder Rock only kind of buoys my enthusiasm. The only downside is that he's now a bit of a shorter price as a result. And he's one of the rare horses who I've been quite good at getting on and off at the right time. I was adamantly against him when he was favourite for the December Gold Cup, basically because I thought his jumping in a big field over fences was going to be against him, and that ultimately told. But then I was really keen on him at Kelso when he won over the 3 miles, first start at 3 miles, because it was good ground, small field. I thought that would suit him, and he absolutely bolted up, beat a certain Manila Drama, who I know, Bully, you are a big fan of, and obviously did you a favourite at the weekend as well. And ultimately, I just think this is, yeah, absolutely. I just think this is going to be the absolute ideal opportunity for him. Like, ultimately, at the top level over fences, he's never jumped well enough. He will never jump well enough, but he's still achieved an awful lot. He's third in the Scilly Isles. He was second to That's All Right Gino, beat Marlin Mission. Obviously, both of those went on to frank that form quite emphatically. Showed at Kelso now that 3 miles isn't a problem, which opens up a world of options for him. And I think his absolute ideal conditions are decent ground, flat tracks, and now finally 3 miles. He's won first time out for the last 2 seasons. He's obviously not giving all that much weight to Katira either. Obviously, it's only £3, would normally be 7, all else being equal. I just think he's got everything in his favour here. He's clearly got unfinished business over hurdles. I think this may well be. I think he'll probably win this, and they'll just stick to hurdles because he's winning rock and a hard place over fences. Mark 156. He's never going to win a handicap. He's not good enough for the graded races. I think staying hurdling is where we'll see him at his best. Is he going to be good enough to win grade ones over staying hurdling? Probably not. But I think a race like this is absolutely perfect.
Yeah, really interesting thoughts, actually, Dan, I have to say. And you've made me sort of double think what I'm going to go for. But before I speak, Jake, I think you like the same horse that I do, I think.
Yeah, if we just go through the market quickly, I mean, Dasher Drasher and Santa Clegane are obviously at the top. Dasher Drasher was beaten in this last season when he probably had just as good a chance of winning it, if not better. He carries the maximum penalties. I think you can probably put a line from him now. He's 11. I know I did say I thought he could have a good chance in the handicap chase the other day, but this is a different bag. Santa Clegane, I just don't know about him. I really think he's a horse who needs a marathon trip. I don't really like that they've given up over fences with him already as well. I know maybe they'll mix it this season, but I just can't see him having the tactical pace on good ground, which he's never ran on before in a race like this. And then Twig is just having a prep over hurdles. Really, he's got a stone to find with the rest of these, and the Grand Nationals is long-term aim. So Katira is the one that I am most keen on. I think when I first looked through this race, I did have a few stamina concerns. She's run over 3 mile once at Kempton in the listed mares race that they have there in November, and she got beaten in that. Obviously, she went off a short price. But I think what gives me a bit more confidence now is the fact that she's, she basically was laid out, wasn't she, for the 2.5 mile handicap hurdle at AMG last season. She won that really well. The form of that race is really strong. She's rated 144. Obviously, she gets weight from pretty much all of these. £9 from Dasher Drasher. Obviously, only £3 from Thunder Rock. But I think she ultimately could be, just a much better horse. And Dan Skelton actually put my worries to bed at Stratford today in an interview where he said he can't wait to run her and that she'll definitely stay the trip. So that's good enough for me. The good ground is obviously perfect for her. Obviously, as I said a minute ago when we were talking about the Lucia, when she ran in that 2 mile listed mares hurdle last year, the banks had burst the day before, hadn't they? And the Friday card was completely off. So the ground completely went against her that day. This year, she's got her good ground, which she's much more accustomed to in the spring where she seems to run so well. So, I think if this race develops into a sprint, I think she's by far the most likely winner. If it's a more natural pace, then, if she stays, I still think she's got a really good chance.
I mean, I don't really need to say much more than that, to be honest, because, I mean, you just said what I was thinking, but wouldn't have put as articulately. I really fancy Katira. She's my my biggest fan of the weekend, I would say. She's just Roxana Mark II, isn't she? For the same team. I mean, a mare stepping up in trip who's got loads of class. Roxana won this in 2020. I think she's got loads of similarities. I think good ground is what she wants as well. I know she won that Aintree handicap on soft ground, but I think she's better on a quicker surface. So yeah, I'd be really keeping her a chance. As you say, Jake, I was buoyed by what Dan Skelton was saying today about her chance.
Yeah.
He looked really confident, didn't he, when he was talking about her. And
Question on that though, I'm curious on your thoughts of this, because obviously he said I've been desperate to try her over 3 miles. Obviously, do you think he forgot that he tried her over 3 miles, or that he actually didn't try her over 3 miles because she wasn't off a bit when she ran in the 3-mile race? Which one are you choosing to believe?
I wouldn't like to comment myself.
No, it's such
We'll
a
let the viewers decide.
Soft answer. There's no integrity in this game anymore.
I think he just forgot. I'm very forgetful. It happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've also forgot your spine, Bully, as well. Journalistic integrity.
I never had one. Which side are you leaning on then, Dan? Or I don't really have to ask that.
Not off a yard.
Okay. Cool. Well, I'm going to go with Katia anyway in that race. Hopefully, 3-mile trip will prove no problem at all. And good ground should be perfect for us. Sandor Clegane, just a word on this horse. I know that Jake just said that he needs a marathon trip, but I just don't know. I just think he's quite slow over 3 miles, and don't think he stays much further. I just don't think he's that good, to be honest. But I do think he's the kind of
just dig that knife in where it hurts.
I'm getting it desperate. I do think that if there's ever a horse that would benefit from first time GPs, then it probably is him, though. So that might help him. But we'll see. We shall see. Good stuff, guys. This is tremendous. Right, on to the Charlie Hall, shall we? That's the big race of the day domestically on Saturday. And Brave Man's Game is favourites, having had another wind up. Grey Dawning, Conflated, French Dynamite, the real whacker, hang in there, Sam Brown. First thing to cover here, Jake. I don't get the vibes particularly good about Grey Dawning actually taking part.
Yeah, it does sound that way, doesn't it? It sounds like they're going to declare him for the Colin Parker as well on Sunday, tomorrow morning, when this podcast goes out. So that's probably a first indication that they're a bit worried. And then Dan Skelton said today, didn't he, in that interview, that they might not run him either. So that would definitely be a concern. I definitely think that he's unlikely to run at this stage. And it's not exactly like there's some rain around, is there? It's a bit unfortunate, to be honest. But yeah, the race is a bit of a minefield, to be honest. Brave Man's Game, obviously, it gives you a big day, Bully, and your horse to forget is here, and he's 13-8 favourite.
He'll be odds on by the time the Rule 4 comes on as well.
Exactly, yeah. So
look, it doesn't mean anything. I stand by what I said. I mean, the horse of last season, even against this field, I think is vulnerable, genuinely. But it remains to be seen.
If he races the same as last season, then there's definitely a chance that you can get beat by one of these. But if he turns up, a much better horse, fully straight for this, absolutely, to the nines, ready to go, then he's probably going to take a bit of beating, isn't he? Realistically, on this better ground that I would say suits him more than others. If you force me for a bet, I'd probably say Conflated had the best chance against him. Obviously, going left-handed, 3 miles on some decent ground. I think that's probably and easy enough 3 miles as well. I think that's probably the best way to go. French Dynamite would also be really interesting if he hadn't got those penalties from that race at Punchestown the last day. I think that's what really puts me off here. He's trying to give £4 to Brave Man's Game. I think last season, the Mouse Morris horse, I can't remember the name of it now, but the one that won this, he was getting weight. Gentleman's Game, that's it. Yeah, he was getting weight from Brave Man's Game, which obviously really helped him. So yeah, I'm probably not going to be getting involved I'm not going to be getting involved in this race. But it is very interesting, and as I said, Conflated would be the token suggestion if I had to put one up.
Yeah, I'll follow you actually, Jake. He'd be my selection to be Brave Man's Game. I have to say Conflated, and I think that unseat last time could be the best thing that's ever happened to him, because it means that he can come here as a pretty fresh horse. And actually, I think he's got a decent chance. I know he's the oldest in the party at 10 years old, apart from Sam Brown. But yeah, I think if there's one to put it up to Brave Man's Game, it could well be him. French Dynamite, I think it's got a good chance too. She's got, as you say, the penalty is not going to help. 11 stone 8, he's got to give all of those horses weight. It's going to be really tough. Dan, your thoughts?
Just on Grey Dawning, I do think he'll run at Carlisle. Just looking at the going sticks, it's a lot slower at Carlisle than it is at Wetherby. And also what Dan Skelton said was, obviously normally comes out late, but he has been beaten on his last two seasonal reappearances. After this, you're kind of struggling with where to go if they want a prep run before the Betfair Chase. I think they'll just kind of swallow it. They won't really overly care about the result. They'll just want to run into him. And I think they'll run at Carlisle is how I'm going to see it. So this obviously will then come with rule fours into this market and quite big ones at that. I'd be conflated. Yeah, I completely think he's the price. He's the play at the prices for sure. I think part of his price is based on the assumption that, and there is a slight element to this, that will he actually be there to win? Or is this going to be a bit of a tiger roll situation? They have said about the cross country, but obviously now it's a handicap. And it's going to be, we're going to run him in grade races. We're going to show he's clearly not good enough to win these races and hope that his mark comes down. That would be the concern. But if a Pete Conflated comes here, I'd have him to beat Brave Man's Game, to be honest. I mean, if you look at that recent run behind John Bonnet Aintree, isn't that probably better form than anything Brave Man's Game's done in recent times? I'd say so. I mean, look at this race last year, and Brave Man's Game all of last season became the bridle horse who I always knew and loved him to be. I'd have Conflated all day to beat him here, and he's maintained a very high level of form despite his age, despite obviously a lot of miles on the clock, third in the Ryan Air, second in the Melling, as mentioned. All his best form has come to the likes of Leopardstown and Aintree, which are flat left-handed tracks. No reason why Wetherby should not suit him. I think at 5-1, he's definitely the bet in the race. And I think earlier it was something like 13-2 in places, which really boggled the mind. But if the market starts to get a bit tetchy, then I think we know he might be in for a bit of a quiet ride. But hopefully they give him a bit more of a positive ride, because he has been seen the best effects in positive tactics as well.
Yeah, a bit of a landmark day here on the Jump Show. We all agree on the same horse in a race. Very rare.
And he's going to be a non-jigger as well.
Yeah, a teameth steameth. Love it. Okay, let's go from Haydock. Shout Haydock. We can go to Haydock if you want. Wetherby to Ascot. And 205 is the Burn Group Handicap Chase over the extended 2 miles. This is a cracker, isn't it? Loads in here that could easily progress beyond their current marks. At the moment, Sensigal is now favourite, has gone in to that position above Matator, and then a few others in behind, the likes of Master Chewy off top weight, and Willie Mullins, Paul Townend, represented by a 20-1 shot in Uncle Phil. Jake, let's start with you on this one.
Yeah, it's a competitive race, as you'd expect for the prize money, so it's good to see. I do love this Ascot card. I think it really does support Wetherby really well. Yeah, so I think Matador is an interesting horse for Phoenicia Williams. I think obviously the problem with her horse is this time of the season is that, you know, she's had 1 runner, 2 runners by the time that Matador runs. I think obviously he was lucky to win at Sandown the last day as well. So he's interesting. Wouldn't be where I land. Master Chewy's off 154. I think with a horse like he is, I'm probably just happy to leave him. And if he wins, say, you know, fair play. It'd be a great weight carrying performance. Madara, I think, surely wants it softer. He was a really quick non-runner at Cheltenham last week. They didn't actually give a reason, but I was assuming to the ground. But he's been declared here, so who knows? I am actually going to give Saint Segal my one and only chance for him. I've managed to dodge this hype horse and cliff horse for many people. I'm sure that loads of you have backed at Saint Segal in a 2-mile, 1 furlong handicap chase around Ascot before. I actually haven't. And this is why I'm willing to give him a chance. Obviously, last November, he came to the Jeff Hurst Park Memorial off a mark of 136 on good ground, jumped the last, well in command, was going to win, and it just crumbled on landing. That was very unfortunate. He would have beat Boot Hill that day. But he's now back, and he's £1 lower than the mark he was running off that day. He's off 135. And probably most significantly, he's had a prep run at Chepstow this time. He had another wind up over the summer. He ran over 2 mile, 4 furlongs in the handicap chase there on the Saturday. He actually jumped really poorly at the start of the race, but when they started to quicken, his jumping got better. And in the end, he finished 4th. No match for the first 3. He didn't stay the trip, but he was giving a nice quiet ride in 4th place, much the best of the rest. So if there's a time where he's going to win a handicap chase around Ascot, this is it. He's off. He's got his mark. He's got his good ground, which I think he prefers. 3 of his 4 career wins have come on at least good to soft ground. And yeah, I think everything's in his favour for him to run well. Obviously, he's got the run under his belt. The other one in the race, as you've mentioned, Tom, is Uncle Phil. I think that he would also be a horse who would have a great chance just going from the front. I don't see much pace on here. And when he won the Down Moor, he did make or at least make a lot of the running. I think if they go forward with him, there's a reason why they brought him over here. His hood goes back on as well, which is interesting. That suggests that they probably want to front run with him. And obviously Paul Townend comes over for the ride. So if he's at his best, if he's at that Down Memorial best, then he can win this. It's just the fact that obviously he's been in a bit of a wilderness since then. There are excuses that you can make for him. But yeah, you've got to forgive some runs. But that's the reason the price he is, and I think he will actually be really well backed. I think I can see him going off sub 10-1 minimum.
Yeah, I mean, given the quarters he comes from, I think Paul Town and Willie Mullins, people are just going to back him whatever, aren't they? I mean, he's 20-1 now. He won't go off that. Yeah, agreed. Okay, Sensigal for Jake. Dan, what are you going to go for here?
Since Sensigal is a horse, I am sure makes the skin crawl of many people listening to this, because he's leaped off the page in races like this for seemingly a year and a half now. I fell for him when he fell at the end of November this time last year. When thing is, he should have won, but I have a feeling he would have found a way to lose anyway, because he's just that type of horse. Like, he absolutely leaps off the page. He clearly has a lot of ability. He just finds ways to get beat. I wish anyone going back on that painful journey the best of luck. I will happily step off the station at this stage. I want nothing to do with it. I won't have a bet in this race. I would just want to see the reality in which Saint Segal and Frere Dames come to the last together.
Can't happen again, surely.
They're 15 lengths clear. And, remember the 3 mile handicap? I think it was this one or the one at the later meeting where like 3 of the front 5 fell at the last. I can see something similar like that happening, because they're both going to almost come to a gentleman's understanding between horse. We're not winning this. We're going to let something else do it. I'd love to see that reality play out, and obviously hope they get up absolutely fine, but I'd love to see them just find ways to get beat. So yeah, I will sit this race out, and I'll be fully prepared, because Jake's now hopped on for Saint Segal to win. But hey, so be it.
Worth mentioning that Frere Dames is £3 out of the handicap, but does have the £7 claim of Miss Heidi Palin this time. So essentially is running off a weight of 9 stone, whatever it is, do the maths, 9. So it's pretty low weight. The one that I wanted to mention actually before we move on is Isar Dairy, just because he won on his seasonal debut last season, and with Freddie Mitchell's £5 claim, he's actually down to just £1 higher than that performance, or it's actually £1 higher than his second win, which came directly after his first. Haven't been seen for a long time, but I think that's okay. He goes well fresh, goes well this time of year, and he's off a low weight too. He is £2 out the handicap, but as I say, Freddie Mitchell claims 5. So I think he's worth keeping an eye on. I think he would prefer the ground a little bit softer. That's the only thing. But at the same time, he has got decent form on a sand surface. So I see Dan smirking. No, it's I think you got. Do you like? You're obviously not a fan of this, are?
No, I'm just smiling away, thinking about what this race could turn into. It's just generally, it's one of those where I'm just gonna be able to watch quite gleefully, because whatever the outcome, I'd be happy, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's move on to the Lavazza Handicap Hurdle, 3:15. This is a big field, really competitive as it always is. And Dan, we'll keep with you, shall we? A couple in here who've, I think, got every chance of turning into some pretty decent horses this season. Actually, do you know what? I'll just go with my thoughts first. It's going to tee you up, and you can just shoot me down if you like. Secret Squirrel, I think, has got a very good chance in this race. Obviously, was a winner at Taunton back in April, won very easily, beating Helen Vane, who obviously is a pretty good handicapper himself, beat him very easily by 5 lengths in soft ground, and then got beaten by Helen Vane in that Sandown race, the Novices Championship final, which is Jake and Dan's favourite race of the season. Still he's running an okay race, but I think there's going to be a lot more to come from him as a 5-year-old, and I think, although he might like it a little bit soft, he's got some very good form on good ground, so I wouldn't be too worried about that. And he's still pretty lightly raced. They've always said he's very, very good, and I'm hoping that he can really fulfill that potential this season. I think his handicap mark of 126 is going to prove very light in time. So he'd be my pick. Dan, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I definitely won't shoot you down now. Obviously, we spoke about the horse a lot. Jake, I'll let him take the baton with it in a second. But I do think this is quite a good race. A lot of interesting types in here. Break My Soul, I think, has got a lot of talent. This is just a very far cry from the races she has been winning previously. Right, so Tom is undoubtedly well handicapped, just has a mammoth absence to defy. Obviously, Fiercely Proud. Let's see if he can get to the start this time. That'll be interesting to see. Again, a lot of subplots going on. But I would be on the Secret Squirrel camp, and I'll just let Jake take it, because I'm sure he's going to be a fan of this.
Yeah, he's one of my horses to follow in the Handicappers to Follow series. So yeah, obviously I'm going to be backing him here. This was actually the race that I nominated for him as a starting point as well. So obviously I've got my race planning head on, and I've managed to get a horse in the
Tremendous.
race.
Tremendous.
Yeah, so Secret Squirrel, obviously, he has, Tom's outlined his form. There's not really much more to say about that. He's going to be £1 worse off with Fiercely Proud here, but he beat him a length and a half at Sandown. And obviously, as Dan just mentioned, Fiercely Proud had that hiccup at Cheltenham last week. So I think that the vibes were very much that he was going to need the run that day, despite him going off a very short price, well, potentially going off a short price before he was withdrawn. I think that would be more the same here in a stronger race. I'd definitely be happy to take him on. And the other horse that Dan mentioned there, Bright So Tom, is definitely a horse that will be on my radar. I really want to see him run well here. I actually would have had him on my handicappers to follow list last season had I not subbed him out at the last minute. Thankfully, I did because obviously he wasn't seen for the whole season. But yeah, he's definitely a horse that I have on my radar for future races. But Secret Squirrel's the one for me here. Good ground is key to him. As I said, I've had this race in mind for him for ages. I think connections have the same as well. And Not So Sleepy also won the November version of this race off a mark of 122 before going to the Betfair Exchange Trophy as well in his handicap hurdle season. So, the
Some
Huey
mark.
Morrison team has a yeah, exactly,
122,
yeah.
Lord above. How did that happen?
Hopefully 126 will be saying the same about Secret Squirrel come a couple years time.
I think we will be, actually. And yeah, we're all nuts for Secret Squirrel, aren't we? I suppose we're all in his camp.
You are in fine form today. And by fine, I mean brutal.
I'd like to apologise to the Jump Show viewers. Um, okay, good stuff. Look, let's move on, shall we? I think that's a good idea. To the 345, the Sodexo Live Gold Cup. I love this race every year. It's an absolute belter, always is. And we got an old friend of the Jump Show in here, Chianti Classico, who Dan and Jake have been fans of for quite some time, particularly when he went and won the handicap chasing the opening day of the Cheltenham Festival. Not been seen for 204 days. Dan, are you going to be a fan of his again this time?
Well, I'll always be a fan of him, but I'm not going to be a fan of him for this race. I quite happily let him go and win if he wants to at the head of the market off this kind of mark and this kind of company. Ultimately, I don't think this is a race where there are many well-handicapped horses. I think it's a very open race. I'm looking through it. Obviously, some have done plenty of winning and probably hit their ceiling. Then you've got Am I Right, who, again, promises to win a race like this, but just never does. Senior Chief, I think, almost stole his role. Senior Chief is what Am I Right was meant to be. But Am I Right just finds ways of getting beat every single time. So I kind of just kept scrolling down. And in the end, I have a nasty feeling I'm about a race or two early with him. But I look at Phlegmatic and I just think 20-1 is just the complete wrong price. As I say, there's a chance today isn't the day because he may well take a couple of runs to really get up to speed. But when I'm looking at other horses, I don't think I'm much in hand. I know Phlegmatic off this kind of mark is very capable. He's proven it time and time again. Obviously, races of 139 here. His last win came off 137. He's been placed off marks in the early 140s. So he ran in this race last year. Was running okay, fell at last. I think he was one of 3 or 4 that fell at last. But this time he's had a prep run at Chepstow, out the back, never really competitive. He was third in the December edition of this race as well that obviously, Yeah Man went on to win the national trial. You had Git Maker further back in that. So that race has worked out well. And he did beat Chianti Classico. Let's not forget at Kempton. Obviously, now £8 better off with Chianti Classico. I do think there's an argument that Chianti wants to go left-handed and probably maybe slightly softer ground, whereas Phlegmatic, this is kind of his playground. Kempton's his main track, but he runs perfectly well at Ascot as well. He basically just wants to go right-handed on decent ground. Cheap pieces aren't on, which is the concern. And also the signal to me that maybe it isn't the day. But I do think in a race of this nature, it could just almost fall into his lap. No problem with Tristan Doyle riding rather than Harry Skelton. Obviously, he's going to be up at Wetherby. Tristan's ridden into victory before. No problem with that. I just think 20-1 is the completely wrong price. He's been way overlooked. Conditions are perfect for him. And if on a going day and if ready to win, I think he'll be right there.
Okay, Phlegmatic for Daniel John. Should we go to Jake to see what he makes of this one?
Yeah, well, when I originally looked at the race, I did really want to take on Chianti Classico. At the entry stage, Victorino was in there, and he would have been the one that I would have gone with. He didn't get declared for whatever reason, so I had to have a proper rethink. And the quote that really swayed me was from Kim Bailey in a stable tool that I hadn't read, but it says, "We'll see how he gets on, and this will push us in the direction that we go. If he were to win by 10 lengths, we will start thinking about other races." So the Grand National is obviously the nominated target that they've given him. But it sounds like he's going to be ready to go first time up. And if he does win well, then, they will look to graded races. And they had a very, very similar horse in Vindication, who was off a mark of 151 in this race in 2019. And he went and, won really well. Ended up going to the Ultima at straight off 159 subsequently, finishing a close up fourth. And then he was second in the Charlie Hall the season after. So, they're not scared to go for, to win race like this off his mark. Obviously, the Grand National is currently the aim, and if he gets beat, it will definitely be the aim. But I think that he could just outclass these, to be honest. I don't think there's any opposition here who could get near him. And if he carried an extra £9 in the Ultima, he probably still would have won, or at least gone very close to winning. And this is, a much worse contest than that was. So yeah, he's won his point to point on good. He won at Ascot last season on good, albeit not his strongest performance of the season, that's for sure. But I think he could just outclass these, and yeah, I think he's got a great chance. Just talking about a couple of the others, high stakes players definitely on my radar for Kempton, kind of like Phlegmatic. I think that they're going to have probably that race in mind for him this season. All the Tom Laces are needing their first run, so I wouldn't have anything on him here, but he's definitely a horse on my radar. Al Power obviously won this race a couple of years ago. I think they've kind of messed around with him too much. For some reason, they ran over hurdles, at the start of last season, thinking that he had a good mark for the Ladbrokes Trophy, and then he got absolutely he fell, but he went off 33 to 1 for that. So it's not exactly like they were saying he's proper well in and well treated for that race. And then lastly, Am I Right? It's just been such a disappointing horse. He's been beating on his last two starts off a mark of 142 in Britain. Obviously gets the £3 claim at this time, but I just can't have him really. I think he's had too many chances now. So yeah, Chianti Classico to outclass them all from the front.
Great stuff, lads. Thanks for that. I'm going to put in a quick word for Neon Moon. I think he's got a decent chance after winning well last time, and he got £4 for that. Second start after a wind up, that might have improved him a little bit. Don't look like that at Chepstow. Okay, let's move on, shall we, to Down Royal. The 240 is the Grade 1 Ladbrokes Champion Chase over 3 miles. All eyes here on Jerry Colombe. For Sam Ewing, big ride for him, that is for sure, in Grade 1 company aboard a Grade 1 horse. Envoy Allen in there as well. Hewick, one of the few remaining for Shark Hanlon. Delta Work in there, and Visionarian as well for the Gavin Cromwell team. Jerry Colombe should take the beating here, I think. I think most people would agree. Jake, to you.
I do think he'll take the beating, but I think if there's a bet in the race, it's Envoy Allen at 7-2. Last season, obviously, he went really close to getting the job done. Just got in, a bit too close at the last. That probably paid enough momentum to let Jerry Colombe come back and win by a neck. Obviously, the ground, though, this time around is going to be completely different. It was running soft last year. It's going to be good this year. Envoy Allen actually has form figures on good ground of 1-1, 1-3. So I think he does probably prefer this, good ground compared to most horses. And another thing is this: if this race does turn into a bit of a sprint like it has done in the past, then I think that's going to really put Hewick out of it, and obviously be in Envoy Allen's favour, considering he's won plenty of races over 2.5 miles in his time. So if they've got Envoy Allen ready to rock and roll first time up, I think he is the massive danger. Albeit I love Jerry Colombe. I think that this is a stepping stone for him. They're not going to have him fully gunned for it, especially on good ground, which I know. I don't mind him on good ground. I think he'll be absolutely fine. It's just he's not going to be at his best because he needs the run, and they've got future targets in time in their mind. So yeah, Envoy Allen would be the bet if I was going to have one. He could go from the front again, and if he gets tactics right, could take some stopping.
Okay, Envoy Allen then the bet for Jake. Dan, what do you make of it?
Yeah, I won't be having a bet in the race, maybe because I'm scarred from backing Envoy Allen in this race last year and somehow getting him beat. Absolutely criminal stuff. And also he had a prep run going into the race last year. I thought it was all set up then and obviously didn't get the job done. So I'll probably leave it alone. Obviously, everyone's probably going to be eyes on Jerry Colombe. I've seen a few people put him up already for the Gold Cup as an Ante-Post bet. Obviously, I mean, he's rock solid. I don't think he really excites you in terms of can he go to the next level. He's probably held by Gallop and Deschamps if he can continue his form. But race I'll leave alone. I agree. I don't think Hewick's going to be sharp enough for this kind of test on good ground. 3 miles around Down Royal is probably not ideal. Won't have a bet. Jerry probably wins. Envoy Allen can clearly see the case.
Okay, I actually think Visionarian might run quite well. I don't think he's going to win. I wouldn't be surprised to see him run pretty well. I mean, he beat French Dynamite easily last time. That was a really good season return. Hasn't really had any chances over this kind of trip. 3 miles. He's got his ground. I think he's going to run pretty well. I mean, I don't think he'll win, but I wouldn't be at all surprised if come 2 out, he's still there, bang there or thereabouts.
Like, would you interestingly? Okay, so if you can get a market without the two Fabs, he's going to be the outside of the three. I don't know what that price is, but would obviously you'd be taking on Hewick and Delta work. Would that be
well, exactly?
Well, the way you play it?
Yeah, I would do. Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I think personally, Hewitt's, well, I know he's a King George runner. I think he's a little bit short at the moment. I mean, I would have Visionarian, yeah, ahead of him. I think in this race at least. Anyway,
without the two Favs.
Yeah, exactly. You might be Envoy Allen. I wouldn't be that surprised.
Okay.
Jake is, I'm sure, shaking his head. That is all of the action on Saturday. That's actually really good. Anything else, lads, for Friday, Saturday, or Sunday? Oh, we've got Wetherby Down Roll, Toxter on Friday, Wetherby Air Ascot Down Roll on Saturday, and Carlisle Huntingdon Cork on Sunday. So there's loads going on. I imagine you've both had a good look at all of it. Jake, start with you because I know that you've had a good look at all of it.
Oh, go on then, buddy. I'll give you a couple extra.
In
the 115 at Wetherby, I think it's the first race on ITV on Saturday. Choose the News is the one that I would be going with here. He's run some really nice races over fences. He's finished second to Giovinco. He beat Pay the Piper, which is a bit of form that's kind of working out well so far this season as well. And he was second in Hexham in May in a novice handicap chase behind Playful Saint. I think off a mark of 120 feet, he's well treated, and I'd be keen on him. He's currently around 3-1. I think that's a good price if he stays around that. One that's completely the other end of the scale at Air in the 123 is Wild Bucks for Lucinda Russell and JP McManus. That's obviously an eye-catching set of silks for up in the north. But yeah, Wild Bucks, he's been running over handicap hurdles, just absolutely dossing around, really. He's off a mark of 102 for his second chase start, because they did try him in one in May where he jumped fine. Yeah, he's going up to 2 mile, 5.5 furlong. That should suit him. He should have a good chance there. And then another Lucinda Russell chaser that I will be backing as well up at Air in the 229 is Whistle Stop Tour. I think that he's just going to have a much better chance over this trip of 2 mile, 4.5 furlong than White Rhino, who obviously was a horse that I did put forward for Cheltenham last weekend, didn't get declared. He comes here instead. I think he's probably more of a 3-miler, whereas I think Whistle Stop Tour is a 2.5 mile horse. And Whistle Stop Tour has some good form here. Obviously, he won here in March as well on Novice Hurdle. Won that really nicely in good to soft ground, so similar to what you're going to get this weekend. Yeah, I think he's going to be a really nice horse. And then I will probably leave it for Dan. I'm assuming he's going to bring it up, but Leader in the Park in the 130 at Ascot as well will be another one on my list. I think he's around 5-2 favourite at the minute. If it got a bit bigger than that, I'd be all over it.
Okay, yeah, Dan, Leader in the Park, straight to you.
Yeah, because him and Bad are both in that race for Ben Pauling, and they're also in the race at Carlisle, the Gordon Richards Memorial. I have a feeling one will run in, who'll stick in Ascot, and one will go to Carlisle on the Sunday. I think Leader in the Park may well switch to Carlisle. Again, just because of those going stick readings, I think Bad will probably be the one who goes out. Also, I think Ascot Novice Handicap Chase are quite difficult. Like I think a very stiff jumping task for a novice, but Leader in the Park, wherever he goes, obviously I spoke about him in a lot of glowing detail in our Handicaps to Follow video. I think he's a bit of a blip off 1-2-1, and he will take a lot of beating wherever he goes if he jumps soundly. So keep an eye on that. I do think there could be a bit of movement there in terms of the ground, especially if they see the first couple of races and is pretty quick at Ascot. Couple that I'll give a quick mention to. I won't go into too much detail because I'm no prices and they're a bit tentative. First race at Ascot, a horse called Gentleman's Relish, has a bit of form that I'm keen to keep on side. He was third behind a horse called Facile of Paul Nicholls, who I think is absolutely thrown in off his mark. And Ideal de Board was another Nicky Henderson horse who they've been talking up a lot. He was third to him. Gentleman's Relish has been very in and out. Like that was the first time he's really shown anything over hurdles, but he's clearly got ability. He won a bumper very comfortably. I think he's got potential, but also with the Henderson only having their first kind of runners of the winter, that does pose some questions. He'll actually probably be the first one to run, so he might well be the guideline. But I think he's interesting as a bit of a prospect. 158 at Air, a horse I absolutely adore, is finally back on a winning mark, is Wakul. Won this race a couple of years ago, now £1 lower. He's been struggling ever since he won the Rendlesham, was basically marks of the 140s constantly, never had a chance, but he's back at Air, which he loves good ground, had a wind up, so I think there's maybe been a few issues around him. The forecast price have him at 12-1. If he opens up at 12s, then he's an absolute bet all day. I don't think he'll be that big. I'd be interested at they're 5-6 to 1. Not the deepest race in the world, but he's finally back to a winning mark and goes well at that venue. Then on to the Sunday, 2:18 at Carlisle. Issam was fourth in the Welsh Champion hurdle, staying on fourth. Never had a chance with lump sum on that occasion, but back up in trip, which is definitely going to help him. Down in class, 1 second time out last season as well, and definitely shaped like he'd improved for the run when fourth in the Welsh Champion hurdle. You look at the form of his Wincanton win towards the end of last season. That's worked out very well. The second and third were Resplendent Grey and Monvielle, who were then first and second again next time out. The fourth was a Welbeck Nichols handicap debutant, and the fifth was a Dan Skelton handicap debutant, who's gone on to win his first 2 starts of the season. He's only £4 higher for that win. I think he's capable of winning again, back up in trip in a slightly easier affair. And then you'll like this one because it's almost now a theme. Harry Derham handicap debutant's first start for the yard. 3:58 at Carlisle on Sunday. Never been to Carlisle before. It's 300 miles away from Harry Derham's base. There's a horse in there called Slugger. And after Washington's gritty success the other week, Harry Derham, yard debutants in handicaps, record now reads 14 wins from 25 runners for a 56% strike rate. It's generally quite remarkable what he's doing there. And it's not just a case of blind faith in Harry Derham, although that isn't necessarily a bad way to go, it seems, at the minute. But this horse has genuine claims of being a well-handicapped horse. He beat Esprit de Poitiers on his hurdles debut last season. That horse is now rated 128. He was fourth in a good air handicap towards the end of last season, won by Primoz. Balboa was back in second. That was off a mark 114. Now down to a mark 112. Clearly well handicapped at putting it all together. He's not been the easiest, but I think if there's anyone to train a type like this, he got Washington to win, for God's sake, then Harry Derham is that man. I think the market may now be catching on to this angle slightly based on what Washington's SP was, but keep an eye on Slugger in that race at Carlisle because that man can do anything.
Great stuff, Dan. A fair few to keep your eye on there. I'm just going to put one forward this weekend. It probably won't be a bet. He's probably quite a short price, but I'm looking forward to seeing the return of Tripoli Flyer in the 2:35 at Ascot on Saturday. Horse finished second in the Grade 2 at Aintree Bumper last season and hit the front that day. Just got overhauled late by one of Fergal O'Brien's other horses, actually. But I'm just looking forward to seeing what he can do over hurdles. He's definitely going to be one of Fergal's smartest 2-mile novices, that's for sure. And it doesn't look the strongest race in the world. So I think it's a good opportunity for him to get off the mark over flights. Good stuff, guys. Hopefully some nice winners in there this week so that Dan can keep on buying Calvin Klein jumpers. Nice sweat she got on there today, Dan, I've got to say.
Keep me in fine cotton, gents. Keep me in fine cotton.
Yeah, keep them in fine cotton. Exactly. Great stuff. Hope you've all enjoyed it. And please do remember to like and subscribe. 200 likes, of course, unlocks a giveaway for the Cheltenham November meeting.
Don't unlike.
Don't unlike.
Don't do that.
Yeah. But unlock instead. And also comment down below with your best bet for the weekend. We'd love to hear what you've got to say about what is a true smorgasbord of proper top-class racing. We will be back next weekend, or next week probably, to preview Wincanton and Aintree. I've genuinely forgotten how to speak. And hopefully, you get some nice winners and enjoy all the racing this weekend because it's really good. Finally, before I go, I imagine Dan and Jake, you're both really excited to watch the Breeders' Cup.
Jeez. I didn't think the outro could get any worse.
I'm stopping recording now.
Have a good weekend, guys.